Hello, and welcome back to yet another UFC video. This was not in the plans. It is NFL draft season. I was prepared to make record. I already have the video made to record an NFL draft related video. However, I was talking with my friend. I'm an avid UFC fan, as some of you may or may not know. And I was talking with my friend about John Jones, and I just had to make a rant about what I think about John Jones. And I have to preface every one of these UFC videos by saying I am not some lifelong UFC fan. I've only been following the UFC for the last, what, year and a half. The first pay-per-view I think I followed closely was, what was it, 296, I think. So that was like December of 2023. So I have not been some lifelong UFC fan whatsoever. So my opinion of these like historic, massive UFC figures, like John Jones, for example, my opinion of him is probably vastly different from somebody who's been watching the UFC for like a decade plus. They get the full John Jones experience. They've taken that journey with him, if you will. I have not taken any journey with John Jones, and all I see when I look at John Jones and especially his career is that the second half of John Jones' career, especially the last 6 or 7 years, has been a complete joke. And I cannot for the life of me figure out why John Jones gets put on this pedestal like he's some undisputed GOAT of the sport, the face of the company, some sort of role model or inspiration to UFC fight. It is baffling to me. And I'm going to make this entire argument with leaving out his personal issues. And brother, I could make a whole video. People have made entire videos breaking down all the personal issues on John Jones and why he is definitely not a role model by any stretch of the imagination. So I'm going to leave all that aside and strictly talk about his UFC related issues. Um, so yeah, let's get right into it. Let's actually start before I even get into it. I mean, the video is pretty much already started. Uh, the fact that the face, the so on quote unquote GOAT of the company, at least the guy that the UFC portrays as the GOAT of the company, is just a proven steroid cheat, like a blatant. And it's so crazy to me because in like every other sport in the world, besides mixed martial arts and I guess boxing, maybe I don't follow boxing closely, steroids is such like a unrecoverable mark on your career. Like if you get caught with like you're just a if you're a steroid cheat, your legacy's done at that point. Like you don't bounce back from that. Look at what they did to Barry Bonds in baseball, how he had a whole legacy before the steroids and how people look at him now, or at least how the baseball people look at him now. It's like steroids can kill your career. And for John Jones, steroids pretty much made his career. His best win of his career, his knockout over Daniel Cormier, got overturned because he was just on steroid. It got overturned. The rematch got canceled. They were supposed to rematch on UFC 200. The rematch got canceled because John Jones got he tested positive for steroids. And then when the rematch actually took place, it got overturned because he yet again was on steroids. John Jones, I don't have any confirmation of this. I believe John Jones has tested positive more than anybody else in UFC history. And it makes sense because if a regular UFC fighter tests positive for steroids more than once, they're cut, they're done from the company. But what do you do when the face of your company is a steroid abuse? I mean, I don't even know what I mean, the UFC just ignores it pretty much. Dana White shuts down anybody who mentions John Jones steroid abuse. It's just an accepted fact. If you watch the UFC, you just have to come to terms with the fact that the quote unquote GOAT is a steroid abuser. And that is crazy to me. John Jones is not in my top 10, my GOAT list. By the way, my next video I was going to make was like things UFC fans get wrong or like common misconceptions about the UFC. That was going to be my next video. I got a GOAT video in the works. I have no idea when that's going to drop. John Jones, when I do my top 10 UFC GOAT video, John Jones will not be a part of that video. He is a steroid cheat. He's a cheater. Not to mention his fight style, where he's literally had fights overturned for breaking the rules, like eye pokes, all not to mention his lame fighting style, in my opinion. But the fact he literally is just a cheater. He has had entire fights canceled, overturned. He is hidden from the USADA people that have come to, he hid underneath like an octagon to hide from the people coming to test him for steroids. He is a rampant steroid abuser. Like that's just a fact of life. If you're with that, if you think John Jones is the goat, you are brushing past the fact that he's a cheater. Like I can't even imagine. Like imagine if fucking LeBron, like in order to deal with the fact that LeBron was like in your opinion the goat, you just have to brush past the fact that he's like a abuses steroids. Like that's crazy to me that that's just something that takes place in the UFC. And let's start to break down his actual career now, if you will. Let's let me share the screen real quick. Let's take a look here so you can visualize it for yourself here. The early part of John Jones' career is what most people give him credit for, and I'm not gonna downplay this much. He has some really good. This is the best part of Daniel Jones' career. It's the most steroid-filled part of his career, but it is the best part. You got wins over UFC Hall of Famers, Shogun, Rampage, Lionel Machida. This is a really good stretch here, a really good stretch for John Jones. But let's just break it down. The majority of John Jones' wins were against old, former middleweights. And I'm not saying old as in John Jones is one of the youngest champions in UFC history. So obviously he's going to be the younger fighter in just about every one of his fights. I'm not saying they're old compared to John Jones. I'm saying they're just straight up old at the time that John Jones fought them. And I mean, how many of these guys that you're looking at right here, just in this stretch alone, are former middleweights? I mean, just off the top of my head, Chael Sonnen, Vitor Belfort. I think Rashawn Evans and Rampage are both former middleweights. I think Lionel Machida was. Like, how many former old middleweights did John Jones get past in order to build the back of his legacy off of? Now, these stretch of wins right here, probably the best in his career. Prime Gustafson, which was a really close fight, by the way. Glover Teixeira, and then the first Daniel Cormier fight is undoubtedly the best win of John Jones' career. That is like without a doubt because he didn't test positive for steroids. This was DC, I guess you could say at the height of his powers. This was the best win of John Jones' career, in my opinion, right here. The first DC fight. Then, really, everything after that is just pretty much all downhill. It consists of wins over guys. If you're a UFC fan and you started like the same time as me, you've never even heard of a Thiago Santos, a Oven St. Preux. Like, obviously, and this is one of the crazy things. So, this fight that I mentioned earlier, the best win at the time, like at the night it happened, the best win of John Jones' career, the head kick knockout of Daniel Cormier, it got turned into a no contest because he tested positive for steroids. I believe. I heard this. It is not a, I don't have the numbers or the facts in front of me to prove this. I believe, from what I heard from somebody that I trust said this, I believe, was it Joe Rogan? Somebody said this who knows more about MMA than me, that John Jones, at the time of this Daniel Cormier rematch, had the testosterone levels of a castrated male. Think about that for a second. What I just said. This big, brolic, burly monster of a guy had the testosterone of a castrated male. If you know anything about fitness or steroids, what do you think the reason with that for that would be? I mean, it's obvious. It's clear as day. He's a steroid abuser. The best one of his career got overturned justifiably. Of course, I'm glad it did. But the UFC in the promotion, by the way, we're gonna get to the Stipe fight. I could make a whole video just about this. When we get to this fight, in the promotion for this fight, they used. It's making me sick talking about it. They used the head kick knockout in the promotion for the Stipe fight. The fight that got overturned because he cheated by using steroids. They used that fight in the promotion for his most recent fight. You can't make this up. The UFC is openly promoting the fact that their heavyweight champion is a steroid abuse. It is mind numbing to me that that's just accepted, and that's one of the main flaws that still exists in the UFC. There's extreme bias involved for certain fighters, and that's why I think that it really is the biggest problem in the UFC today. Let's go back through his career. Let me spend some more time really going through it here. Um, like I said, the final stretch at light heavyweight, these last four fights, it's just laughable. The Gustafson fight, I guess it's the best win of this stretch. However, you got to take into account Gustafson at this point was washed. Gustafson never won another UFC. Let's look at it. Let's look at it. Gustafson never won another fight after the John Jones rematch. Look at it. He lost to Anthony Smith, million-year-old Verdum, Nikita Krylov. He never won a never fight. He got finished every single fight after the John Jones rematch. He was washed unequivocally. And that's the thing about John Jones. His wins aged terribly. Is there a single win on John Jones' resume where he beat a guy and they just went on like a tear afterwards? Obviously, the DC win. That's the best of his career. Is there anybody else that John Jones fought like on the come up who actually put together a solid career? Like old Wash Rampage, Machida. Like after he beat all these guys, they didn't build themselves back up for a rematch. The only one was DC, and I guess you could say Gustafson. But after John Jones beat him a second time, he was done. He was cooked. So that's the best win of his, comeback to light heavyweight. And then you got, brother, unanimous decision over Anthony Smith. I don't even have to go too in depth on this. I don't think I have to explain to you why a decision win over Anthony Smith is just laughable in hindsight. Thiago Santos, split decision. Like I said earlier, if you've become a UFC fan the last 3 years, you probably don't even know who this is. Another win that aged terribly. Look again. Thiago Santos, after he lost to John Jones, Thiago Santos went 1-4 in the UFC after the John Jones fight. Laughable. Laughable. And he went to a split decision versus Thiago Santos. The Dominic Reyes fight, listen. At this point, if you follow the UFC, it's pretty much just well known that Dominic Reyes beat John Jones and was robbed in broad daylight. Even if, let's say, benefit of the doubt, even if you're one of the minority of people who think John Jones beat Dominic Reyes, the fact that he went to war with this guy, let's just bring up Dominic Reyes. Keep in mind, John Jones went to war with this guy. Look at what happened afterwards. He was knocked out by Ryan Spann, and John Jones went to war with him. Brutalized by Jan Blachowicz and Yuri Prochazka. John Jones went to war with him. Let's not talk about, by the way, John Jones ducking Jan Blachowicz, who is probably the best light heavyweight, most well-rounded light heavyweight in the last 7 or 8 years. I mean, you can make a case that John Jones has ducked the three toughest opponents that he's faced since DC. He's ducked them all. But so Anthony Smith, laughable win. Thiago Santos, split decision, laughable win. Dominic Reyes lost to Dominic Reyes, but at the very least, went to war with the guy who got knocked out by Ryan Spann. Just terrible. Even including, it is making me sick talking about this. Even including the knockout over Gustafson, a terrible stretch as the final light heavyweight champion. Alex Pereira's stretch that he had recently, does it lapse this stretch? You got a loss to Dominic Reyes, split decision versus Thiago Santos. It's the fact that all of these wins, all four of them, aged terribly, combined with the fact you had unanimous decision, split decision, loss, should have been a split decision, somehow unanimous decision victory. It is a terrible stretch. And now let's get into really how John Jones, honestly, brother, John Jones should have just retired after the Dominic Reyes fight, never came back into the public eye. I wholeheartedly believe John Jones moving up to heavyweight has done more harm to his legacy than good. Let's break it down. John Jones just conveniently waited 3 years right until after Francis left the UFC to come back and fight Cyril Gane. Do you guys not see the problem with that? And by the way, if you've seen John Jones' physique at heavyweight, the man did not need 3 years to bulk up. He looks like he put on a straight 30 pounds of body fat, no muscle whatsoever. He did not bulk up. He did not need 3 years to bulk up. He honestly looks like his just light heavyweight thing. He is in much worse shape, by the way, than he was even during this final stretch at light heavyweight. He looks like he simply just didn't cut weight. He didn't cut weight. He walks in at a heavyweight. It's the exact same figure, if not worse. So that whole myth has been easily debunked. He waited to avoid Francis Ngannou, came back, fought Cyril Gane. By the way, who figures? Cyril Gane, another win that has aged terribly. Cyril Gane came back. Congratulations, you beat Sergey Spivak and lost clear as day. Lost to Alexander Volkov. He was robbed in broad daylight, split decision. They gave Cyril Gahn the win over Alexander Volkov. Terrible robbery. Let's get back to John Jones. So he came back and listen. He subbed Gahn in round one. At the time, very impressive. We would come to find out how Cyril Gahn is just not that impressive of a win whatsoever. But at the time, it was very impressive. He became double champ. He took, let's count it, March to the end of 2023. That's 9 months plus 11 months, 20 months off. Now, he did suffer, I believe, a torn pec in the middle of this time. So you got to give, let's say, you give him a 6 month break for injury, right? Maybe that's even a little bit generous. 14 months unaccounted for, where he should have, keep in mind, should have been fighting the number one contender, Tom Aspinall. This is really getting into the crux of this video right here. And this is also the point where I have to mention the fact that this is not all on John Jones. A lot of this is on Dana White and the UFC, especially for allowing this to continue. John Jones' reign as heavyweight has been much more boxing than UFC. And what I mean by that is you have a guy who clearly has the favoritism and the bias of the promotion, I guess, and he is able to pick and choose who he fights. By the way, no other champion besides maybe O'Malley's fight versus Cheeto is the only other one off the top of my mind that I can think of this happening. No other fighter picks and chooses their opponent. John Jones got to avoid the interim champion, and we're going to get to Tom Aspinall. He got to avoid the interim champion and pick. Let's talk about Stipe Miocic, brother. Oh man, I wholeheartedly believe that the Stipe Miocic fight is the biggest disgrace. I didn't mean to click on the fight. Is the biggest disgrace to the UFC in maybe history. I don't say that lightly, and that is a big statement, but I wholeheartedly believe that. Tom Aspinall had to defend the interim title. Keep in mind how ridiculous that sounds. He had to defend the interim title. Meanwhile, the undisputed champion gets to cherry pick a old man, 42 years old, retired, Stipe Miocic, to bring him out of the retirement home. By the way, Stipe Miocic had not won a fight. This is his last win right here in COVID. He had not won a fight in over 4 years when he fought John Jones. Keep that. That is so it's almost unbelievable to say that. That the title challenger, Stipe Miocic, got to jump the defending interim champion after not winning a fight in 4 years. Every single heavyweight on the roster, damn near, was more deserving of a title shot that night than Stipe Miocic. And the fact that the fans were not in, don't get me wrong, there were a lot of fans who, deservingly so, were against that fight, and they saw it for what it was. It was a complete joke. It was a cherry pick by John Jones to try and pull one over on the fans, because in 10 years from now, John Jones, they're not going to remember 10 years from now how old and how washed Stipe was at this point. John Jones is going to be able to say that he beat Stipe Miocic. That's like Israel Adesanya claiming that his best win of his career was against Anderson Silva, even though Silva was completely washed by that point. Do you realize how ridiculous that sounds? I mean, that's like what's his name? That's like the winner of Volkanovski versus Diego Lopez calling out Jose Aldo to come fight at featherweight for the first time in half a decade. Like it is just so laughable that people give John Jones credit for this win. By the way, let's talk about how it took him 3 rounds to finish Stipe Miocic. He did not look that good in this performance. Stipe looked terrible. Stipe looked like he didn't even want to be there. Stipe genuinely looked like he was just in there to collect his check and go home. Stipe at no point in time looked like he deserved to be fighting for the belt. And I mean, the man was 42 years old at the time of the fight. Of course, he wasn't going to look like some, marauder out there, right? And this is the reason why I really do believe that the heavyweight division is the worst in the company. You have the undisputed champion, John Jones, ducking the defending interim champion, to cherry pick old men to stack up title defenses, whatever. John Jones now is about to pass Stipe for the longest reign in heavyweight history. He's had two fights in that stretch. Absolutely laughable. And the fact that they threw a damn near threw a parade when John Jones beat Stipe as if it was some monumental legacy win. It was shameful. And the I was watching this fight live in Buffalo Wild Wings, and the fact that the rest of the bar got up and like gave him a standing ovation damn near, it made me sick to my stomach. Like this is one of the most pathetic wins in UFC history. And and the reason I say it again that it reminds me of boxing is because you see all these guys who have, that are at the top of the sport in boxing. They have these young up and coming, deserving challengers that they just avoid because they know it's too dangerous. And in boxing, it's more important to preserve their image than it is to actually fight the best of the best, right? And that's why I like the UFC instead of boxing, is because no matter what, the best are going to fight the best at the end of the day. But now you can't say that about the UFC anymore because of the John Jones situation. And let's talk about Tom Aspinall for a second, right? Because honestly, as far as I'm concerned, like I said, I've not been a lifelong UFC fan. I could care less about John Jones and his legacy. Honestly, you can flush his legacy down the toilet for all I care if he doesn't fight Tom Aspinall. Because let's take a look real quick at Tom Aspinall, right? Tom Aspinall has never lost in the UFC. This knockout loss versus Curtis Blades, he blew his knee out as soon as the fight started. Like immediately into the fight, his knee blew out versus Curtis Blades. It really should be what's it called, like a no contest or whatever, but they gave him a loss. Tom Aspinall is 8-0 in the UFC. And let's take a look at his last 5 wins specifically, right? Top 10 win versus Sergey Spivak. First round knockout, right? Top 3 heavyweight in the world, maybe even top 2, Alexander Volkov. Tom Aspinall finishes him in the first round. By the way, you'll notice all of Tom Aspinall's fights are finishes within the first 6 minutes. I just wanted to point that out. But Tom Aspinall finishes top 3 heavyweight in the world, Alexander Volkov, in the first round. And he gets his wins only get quicker and quicker after that. Marcin Tybura, consistent top 10 heavyweight, knocked him out in the first 90 seconds. Sergey Pavlovich, thought of as a boogeyman in the division. It took Tom Aspinall a minute 9 seconds. Pavlovich landed one strike before Aspinall knocked him out. Okay, and then recently, not even recently, UFC 305 or 304, I think, Tom Aspinall defends the interim belt against Curtis Blades and knocks him out in a minute. So let's compare for a second what John Jones is doing at heavyweight. 2 fights in 2 years, over 2 years. I mean, in a terrible performance against Stipe, compared to Tom Aspinall running through the top of the division. And the sad part is, Tom Aspinall's career is now being undermined. It's being undermined by John Jones. Because if John Jones got got out of the picture, if they stripped John Jones a year ago like they should have, then Tom Aspinall would have racked up at least another 2 title defenses. Who knows how many millions of dollars Tom Aspinall has missed out on, how much legacy he's missed out on. His career is now pretty much on hold. He is now the Michael Chandler of heavyweight, having to wait and pray that somehow the UFC's favorite fighter, Conor McGregor, John Jones, blesses him with the opportunity to fight him. Who would have thought that the interim champion of a fight of the UFC would have to hope and pray that the undisputed champion gives him the opportunity to fight? It is embarrassing. And the reason I'm so mad about this is because I really, when I got into the UFC, I did not think I'd see shit like this. I thought it was different than boxing. I thought the best fight the best. And it's just not what's happening. Especially, it's why heavyweight is the worst division in the UFC, because no fight besides Tom Aspinall and John Jones matters. So every fight at heavyweight the last 2 years has pretty much been irrelevant. Who cares unless it's John Jones versus Tom Aspinall? And here's the thing. It is without a shadow of a doubt a lose-lose for John Jones. I'm not denying the fact that John Jones really has no reason to fight Tom Aspinall. Oh, I don't know. Besides tens of millions of dollars and the fact that if you don't want to fight Tom Aspinall, retire. If you're a champion, the goal is to fight all challengers. That's kind of like the whole fucking point. Like, imagine if when Khabib won the title, he was just like, you know what, Dustin, Poirier, Justin Gaethje, I know you guys are the interim champions, but I want to fight McGregor again. I know you guys worked to get the belts, and I know you guys are real, tough challengers. I want to fight fucking whoever the fuck, some random ass lightweight that nobody cares about. Like, can you imagine how much these other guys will get crucified? And don't get me wrong, John Jones, his legacy has been eroding right before our very eyes. People are turning on John Jones in droves. But brother, I just it is baffling to me how the UFC defends and props up John Jones as if he is some untouchable, like undeniable figurehead of the sport when it's just I broke it down how many flaws the guy has. Not as a person, because that's a whole list in and of itself, but as a champion and as a fighter. I mean, and listen, just for the record, if this fight, and I hope it does, if it does end up taking place, I do have Tom Aspinall by first round finish. Because, I mean, brother, in my opinion, finishing Curtis Blades, Pavlovich, Volkov in the first round, I honestly don't think at this point in time that John Jones is on the same level as those guys, just based off what I see. I've only ever seen John Jones fight once live, and he struggled to put away a 42-year-old firefighter. I'm just saying, like it's not that hard to predict, in my opinion. But honestly, part of me hopes that they just strip John Jones, he retires, and I never have to think about John Jones again. I want to be a fan of a UFC that has a good heavyweight division. I have never been a fan of that in the last year and a half. I have never seen it with my own two eyes. I've heard about it when heavyweight champions used to fight each other, and when the best used to fight the best, Stipe versus Daniel Cormier and things like that. That has not happened in years, literal years, because of John Jones. So that is my rant. I just had to get that off my chest. I will certainly be coming back with actual NFL draft related videos in the future. But leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Comment if you're a pathetic John Jones Blazer. Why I'm wrong. But I will see you all in the next video. Peace.